For years, there was one man who was, without a doubt, the face of modern China's economic boom. A total rock star CEO who literally built an empire from his apartment. His name, of course, is Jack Ma. But his story isn't just about incredible success. It's really about what happens when one person's power gets so big, it crashes right into the power of the state.
And that crash leads us to the one big central question. How on earth does a guy this famous, this celebrated, this influential just vanish? To really get what happened, we need to understand the man himself and the very unique system he was operating in.
So let's actually start at the end of the story, with the moment that totally shocked the world.
Look, it's pretty hard to overstate just how huge Jack Ma was. He wasn't just some CEO. He was a global celebrity, a living, breathing symbol of the new China, the ultimate proof that anyone, no matter where you came from, could build an empire. He was meeting with presidents, prime ministers. He was basically China's ambassador of innovation to the entire planet.
And then, just like that, it all stopped. After he gave a speech where he pretty openly criticized China's financial regulators, he just dropped off the map. No more public appearances, no social media, nothing. The world's most famous entrepreneur was gone. And of course, everyone started asking, where is Jack Ma? So what led to this moment? Let's go all the way back to the beginning.
Because to understand his unbelievable rise, you first have to understand his insane persistence in the face of just constant, crushing rejection.
You know, his origin story is so fascinating because it isn't defined by success at all. It's defined by failure, over and over again. Before he was this titan of industry, Jack Ma was, and he'd say this himself, an expert in getting rejected.
Okay, so get this. He failed his university entrance exams twice. He applied for more than 30 different jobs and was turned down for every single one. He even tried to become a police officer, and they told him straight up, "You're no good."
But the most legendary story? When KFC first opened in his hometown, 24 people went for a job. 23 of them were hired. You can probably guess who the only person rejected was. Yep, Jack Ma. That story became a core part of his legend, you know? It just perfectly captured the incredible odds he was up against.
The big turning point for him came in 1995. He was on his first trip to the US, and a friend showed him something he had never seen before: the internet. Now, Ma had never even touched a computer, but what he saw on that screen, well, it would change everything.
He typed the word China into a search bar and found basically nothing. And in that empty space, where most people would just see, well, nothing, Jack Ma saw a gigantic opportunity. He knew right then and there that he had to get China online. And he decided he was the one who was going to do it. So with that vision burning in his mind, he went back to China, ready to build something from absolutely nothing. This was the moment the idea for Alibaba was truly born. Alibaba wasn't started in some fancy high-rise office. Nope, it was born in 1999 in Jack Ma's tiny apartment with 17 of his most loyal friends. And their mission was simple, but it was also incredibly ambitious. They wanted to empower all the small and medium-sized businesses out there by connecting them to a global market. Their whole motto was, make it easy to do business anywhere. But it didn't take long for a massive international competitor to come knocking. In the early 2000s, eBay, the absolute king of e-commerce at the time, entered the Chinese market, totally confident that they were just going to roll over everyone. And this set the stage for a classic David versus Goliath battle. And you can see right here how their strategies just couldn't have been more different. eBay came in with its standard, clean, one-size-fits-all global look, but Alibaba's platform, which was called Taobao, was built from the ground up just for Chinese users. It was busier, way more colorful, and really leaned into the kind of social, interactive shopping that local customers actually wanted.
Jack Ma had this famous saying. He called eBay a shark in the ocean, but he said he was a crocodile in the Yangtze River. And on its home turf, the crocodile was always going to win. And he was right. While eBay was charging sellers just to list their items, Taobao made it completely free. While eBay was all business, Taobao was social, with things like live chat that helped build trust. Alibaba just got the local market in a way eBay never could. And they won. Big time.
So, after crushing eBay, Alibaba's dominance just exploded. And as the company got bigger and bigger, well, it started to attract a very different kind of attention.
In 2014, Alibaba went public on the New York Stock Exchange. It raised a staggering $25 billion. At the time, that was the biggest IPO in history.
This wasn't just about money, though. This was a statement to the entire world that a Chinese tech company was now a global superpower.
And with all that power came an influence that went way beyond just e-commerce. Jack Ma became a kind of political figure in his own right, a de facto diplomat for Chinese business. But here's the thing. In a system where the Communist Party is the absolute final authority, that kind of independent, individual power, that can start to look like a threat.
And this timeline just shows you how incredibly fast everything fell apart. October 2020, he gives that critical speech. Just a couple of weeks later, in November, the government slams the brakes on the massive IPO for his other company, Ant Group. And then, boom. Shortly after that, he was gone from public view. The message couldn't have been clearer. No one, and I mean no one, is bigger than the system.
So, when we look back at his whole story, how are we supposed to make sense of his legacy?
Ultimately, I think his story really boils down to this one powerful question, the central conflict of his entire life. In a system that's built on collective control, just how big can one person get before they're seen as a threat to the dragon?
And that really leaves us with two different ways to look at Jack Ma. Is he the ultimate visionary, the guy who reshaped an economy, empowered millions, and proved that anything is possible? Or is his story a warning, a cautionary tale about the invisible lines you just can't cross, a story about the true limits of ambition in modern China? You know, maybe the real answer is that he's both.